All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. A couple minutes late here, as I mentioned in the chat. We're coming in hot this month, and like coming in from meetings. You had some meetings, and then right immediately after, I have to jump on my other laptop to join a meeting at the end of this thing. So it is July, which means it is starting to get busy, especially in my world. So at EY, our fiscal year rolls over July 1st. So it's like brand new year. Everybody's, hitting things running. So it's been some crazy weeks last week and this week. But how you doing, Andy?
Coming back off vacation. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
catch
man.
up, get back into the flow of work. But yeah, flying by the seat of my pants as we're getting in here today. But looking forward to this one. This should be a fun one.
Awesome. We got a couple people joining us here. Minneapolis, Charlotte, North Carolina, over in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, Travis. Hello,
So,
sir.
yeah, which you went up. You were still in North Carolina, right? You like went up to the beach, like a little bit north of you or something?
East to the
East.
coast. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
That must be nice.
on the coast.
Yeah, we went down to Arkansas for a couple days, like around 4th of July. That was really nice. Just kind of hang out by the lake at an Airbnb. It was a good time. So we've got a fun topic this month. We wanted to talk about something that we've used a lot on the OpenAI side and maybe a little bit on the Claude side, but we don't really like to talk too much about stuff like until it's baked a little bit in the Copilot space. And Copilot notebooks, they made a big splash. They were coming, they showed a lot of demos, and the rollout for it has kind of happened. It's been maybe like 2 months, almost 3 months maybe, since notebooks have landed, and it's kind of calmed enough that I think it's stable enough for us to talk about it and not have buttons not show up and then show up later and stuff like that. So we thought it would be a good time to kind of kick things off in that new fiscal year, talking about some of these more advanced capabilities like Copilot notebooks. There was also a new agent called Agent, capital A Agent, that was announced that's going to be coming to the Copilot experience later on. Some of those more, below the surface type of features for, maybe a little bit more power users of Copilot. And the first one of those to kind of talk about is Copilot Notebook. Now, I have used ChatGPT Projects for probably over a year at this point. I think like I jumped into them right away, started using the project capability, and then I've kind of been dabbling into notebooks. I got a little bit of early access at work, and then I've been using it in our MVP tenant that we share otherwise. So I'm a little bit less familiar with the Copilot side and interested to like dive into it and really kick the tires on what Copilot Notebook looks like. But Andy, you've tried Claude notebooks, right? Or projects?
Yeah,
They're called projects.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Have you done Notebook LM at all?
I'm sorry.
Have you done Notebook LM at all with Google?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So maybe you kind of have the other half of what I haven't played with.
I am not monogamous with my AI. I have an open relationship. I have dabbled with all of them, from ChatGPT to Claude to Gemini, Copilot, and kind of everywhere in between. I like seeing what the capabilities are to kind of have an idea of where the market might be going and where some of the pitfalls are. But full disclosure, being able to talk about the differences helps me with our user adoption story within my organization. People come from different AI tools, and our enterprise standard is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So being able to do a compare and contrast and really talk deeply about the differences is something that I find to be very helpful. And I do like to experiment as a new feature rolls out, like a Notebook LM. As a new feature like a project or a notebook comes out, it's interesting to see how these things overlap with one another and what the market might be kind of shifting to. I've spent a lot of time recently doing a deep dive into prompting versus agents, and when to use prompts and when to use agents. And we've spent some time and did some topics on that as well, and that's been really eye opening for me. And I found it's the same way when we start talking about some of these other AI tools and comparing and contrasting some of the features with it. I haven't done as much deep work, like referencing a project, for example, internally, because it's been limited in the Copilot space for a little while. But to your point from a little while ago, notebooks are starting to give us those capabilities now. And so I'm transitioning some of my workload in the Microsoft stack into Copilot notebooks and starting to work more and expand off of that. So I'm looking forward to talk here today and exploring this with everybody who's joining in with us from all over the world.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I put in the chat below. What are you guys using, the viewers right now? Like, have you used Notebook LM? Kind of what your thoughts are about one versus the other. I have to admit, some bias here because I mean, obviously, we're both Microsoft MVPs, and I'm paying personally for the ChatGPT Plus subscription, so that's like the $20 a month. So my experience is all on like the Microsoft and OpenAI side, but I'm curious to learn more about the Google and Anthropic side. Now, one thing I thought that we could maybe start off with, just to kind of lay the groundwork of those kind of four big players. Somebody might let us know in the chat one of the other players that's out there. But I did go into ChatGPT and I asked it to give me an unbiased comparison chart. I tried to hey, don't make one win over the other, to try to say like, all right, with O3, what's the difference between these things? And it did an okay job, like knowing about Copilot notebooks. I'll kind of call out some of the incorrect things that it has mentioned, but it's a bit of an eye chart. I tried to zoom it in as much as I could, but I did use O3. So you can see that it thought about it for 3 minutes. It did a ton of web searches and kind of pulled all this stuff from like help documentation across Microsoft and OpenAI and Google. But you can kind of see here like some of the differences between these, and they're all similarly in the same type of space, feature functionality wise, where it's a place that you are going to collect things, whether it's chats that are associated around a specific topic, or you're going to add files to it. So you're kind of grounding your new chats within those files and within the other conversations. It's a little bit, I don't know if it's entirely accurate to call it this, but it's a little bit like a mini RAG of sorts, where it's like you're kind of sectioning off everything about a topic into a container of sorts, called a project or called a notebook, depending on what you're looking at. So, they all kind of call it the same thing. Like it's a smart workspace. It's a place where you can organize files and chats. It is distinct from OneNote, so that we're not talking a OneNote notebook, talking a Copilot notebook. So, the terminology might be a little bit confusing there. Same with Google, right? You're bringing in sources, you're bringing in files, bringing in other information. Notebook LM, they really lean into the audio overviews. And we'll talk a lot about that today, which is kind of a podcast style summaries that you can generate. And then same thing here with Claude, right? They call it like a knowledge base, right? You're setting up this kind of mini RAG. You're connecting to either data that's specific to that container, or the chats that are there within, and then they call out that there's also connectors that are available within those projects. So the different things that you can kind of add to here are with ChatGPT projects. You're able to add upload files, right? So I upload PDFs, I upload spreadsheets, pictures, other things like that. It does have some memory to it, and then there is also instructions that you can add. So you can add custom instructions. It's important to note, though, there are connectors with ChatGPT. So you can connect to things like Google Drive or like a personal OneDrive or SharePoint site if your administrators allow those connectors. And then ChatGPT is able to use those. You cannot do that inside a project. So it's limited in its external connectivity. Now with Microsoft Copilot notebooks, you're able to add the typical suspects, right? Your Word documents, PowerPoints, and Loop things, OneNote notebooks, as well as like any Copilot pages, which are based off of Microsoft Loop. And then it's got the basic grounding for the rest of your organization. Same with Google. It's playing in their area. You've got Google Docs and Sheets and Slides. Anything from your Google Drive you can bring into that Notebook LM. These are kind of interesting, though, web URLs and YouTube. So you can put in specific web URLs. We'll talk about that in the demo for notebooks. I found that Copilot notebooks, we can't actually add websites, like specific websites. And that was a limit that I kind of ran into, like, I kind of was disappointed by that. Same type of thing with Anthropic here, right? You're doing connectors to Google Drive, or you're uploading specific files that have like text and images and things like that. They do call out that you can do connectors, though, with the Claude one. Anything you want to add to kind of like what the container is and what you put in the container, Andy, from your perspective?
I just want to emphasize that as this has matured, when we first got our hands on any one of these, it was just independent conversations, completely siloed from one another. So I would have like a series of chats running along in the sidebar of ChatGPT, and even their search wasn't great in the beginning. And there was a lot of manual scrolling, and I have a lot of chats. And so like revisiting some of that, it was really hard. So I was having to copy and paste a lot into notebooks manually. Same thing with Claude, independent conversations, and Copilot, independent conversations. What you're talking about here and what it's doing is it's allowing us to take, okay, this conversation is related to this conversation. Let's put them in the same container, but also reference them. And I think that opens up a ton of possibilities and capabilities. So the silo is being broken open. But I do want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between putting things in the folder and memory. ChatGPT's had memory for a little while now. And in some cases, it's really good. It remembers other parts of conversation, and I can just say, hey, we talked about this. How does it apply to that? But in other cases, it doesn't want to let go of the memory. And it's like, well, we talked about this other thing. And I'm like, no, I want to start fresh. And it's like, no, we've got this thing, we need to continue to drill down on. And so it gets a little frustrating. Projects kind of help with that a little bit. Compartmentalization amongst the things that I want. And so I think that's really helpful. And so it's a container to put these things into, and then adding the files to it adds to the sourcing and the grounding of what you're doing. That's also another big benefit. But then you got to figure out your workflow around it. And so that's, I think, something we want to expand on a little bit today.
Yeah. And David has a clarification. I don't know if he's with the product group maybe or something, but he says that web URL support is coming soon for Copilot notebooks. So I kind of voiced that complaint when we're talking about what types of things can you put into these containers. So that's really good. And then Amy was talking about Copilot notebooks actually are surfaced in OneNote. Now it is important to make the distinction. They're not OneNote notebooks. They're a construct called a Copilot notebook. But one of the interfaces that you can call it up is in OneNote now. So that makes it more accessible, which is really cool. So the other kind of chunk of this research that I did pretty quickly before we started is what you're able to do within the notebooks. That's another kind of discrepancy that I've noted between like ChatGPT and Copilot space. And you might have some thoughts in there about Google and Claude as well. But one thing I've noticed is that the ChatGPT, you are able to do some of the more advanced things like deep research. So if I'm in a Copilot a ChatGPT area here, and I open up like this one, I can go ahead and I can search the web. I can also like upload things directly and work with some of those more advanced capabilities. One thing I've noticed with the notebooks is when I go in and start a new chat or go into a chat. Once it's associated with the network or with the notebook, I'm not able to chat with an agent. So I'm not able to bring the researcher agent in yet. But that is something that we'll call out is on the roadmap. So on the public roadmap, we found that agents are kind of on the short list to come in there. But today, that's a difference between the two is, my kind of workaround that I have found is I sometimes will go do a regular chat within Copilot, and I'll, work with images, I'll work with the researcher agent, something like that. And then I'll add it into the notebook after I'm kind of done with that chat. And I want to, use it as a knowledge base type of thing. So that's something that I've used in the past is doing what I need to do outside of the notebook and then bringing it in. Obviously, whenever agents come in later on, that will be a little bit better. There are limits to what you can put into the notebooks as well. So with ChatGPT, OpenAI's product, you're able to do 20 files in a project. I have run into this limit before. So I have a Plus subscription, so I'm able to only put in 20. If you're doing the $200 a month subscription for like the Pro version, or there's some cheaper options if you do Team, Enterprise, and EDU, you can do 40 new files into your project. It's important to note that the limit for Copilot notebooks is really around what it's able to reference in your chat experience. So you might be able to dump like 50, 60, however many files into the notebook itself, but it only references up to 20 of those. And I'm curious if that's going to be changing soon, Andy, because I've noticed in the regular chat for Copilot chat, that I've gotten back like 22, 24 different citations. So I know that 20 limit has been removed from the normal chat. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if this might be out of date a little bit here. Kind of like I said, I was going to call out the incorrect things. ChatGPT is claiming that researcher is able to work within the notebooks. It is not at this time. Yeah. That's going to be a later on the roadmap type of feature. It looks like they're pretty big though for the other products here, right? So you can do up to 50 different sources in a Google Notebook LM notebook. And then it doesn't really talk about how many files you can do, but you have 200,000 tokens whenever you're working with Anthropic's project solution. Any insights to have you used agents or dumped really massive amounts of files into those other products?
I have experimented with Claude projects, and around one specific is a ton of research for blog posting. That's been the number one use case over there for me in the experimentation related to Claude, because it has had the largest context window of the AI tools up to this point. It's been really helpful for that large context, and it seems to do a really good job of being able to manage that large memory. But like you were saying with your ChatGPT Plus subscription, you're paying for the Plus subscription. Same thing, I'm paying for the Claude subscription so that I get that extra capabilities.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to the sharing and collaboration, I thought this was another kind of point that I've run into with my personal usage of these products, which is I really wish that I could share an entire project or an entire notebook, right? And in the ChatGPT world, I'm not able to share the entire project, but you kind of have that basic chat-based sharing. So if I go into, this is my my prep project that I did for our trip to Vegas, I wasn't able to share this entire project with Andy, but at the individual level, it looks like it's grayed out now. I was able to share those. I wonder if it now doesn't allow me to share those, but it would be nice to be able to share the entirety with all the sources and all of the instructions and things like that. But I'm not able to do that with ChatGPT. Same thing over here in the Copilot notebook space. Whenever we've got a notebook, there's no sharing capability at this time. I can just kind of favorite, rename, or open the project or the notebook. And then if I go into a specific conversation and I've got like a response here from Copilot. Come on down. I can do just copy response, but you see I don't have the share capability right there. One thing I can do as a workaround is you can edit it in Pages. And then once you like open that up into a Copilot page, it's now a loop file. So at that point, I could click the share button and then I could share it with somebody. But that's kind of like extracting it out of the chat itself. And here's the results from the chat, and we can work together on the resulting content. So kind of limited in the collaboration capabilities for both of those. It looks like on the Google side, you can share your notebooks a little bit more smoothly. I've heard of people doing like collaborative podcasts, like AI podcasts with Notebook LM, and they've been able to like share the actual notebook back and forth between podcast hosts. So that would be kind of nice. And it looks like in Claude as well. If you're in the team and enterprise space, you can have like enterprise workspaces, so you could add other people to it as well. So over here in the data and data residency things, I think most of this is just kind of basic to the overall platform, right? Like in the Copilot notebook space, it's important to call out these are SharePoint embedded containers. So it creates a SharePoint embedded container, for lack of better words, that kind of headless SharePoint. That's where it stores that information, kind of like a Loop workspace, but without that collaboration, without that sharing capability. So it's a little bit like your personal workspace in the Loop construct as well. Now, it's important if you're using ChatGPT. This is something we like to pull out, all the time. Is if you're on like a non-enterprise version, then you need to like go in and turn off improving the model. So if you don't want your data to train ChatGPT, then you'll need to go into the settings, and then I think it's under data controls. Yeah, improve the model for everyone. If you turn that off, then it won't train the model. So that is something you have to manually turn off at your like overall ChatGPT account level. On here, they say Google, promises that your data is not used to train if it's inside a Notebook LM. And then the same thing with Anthropic. They're not using it to train their underlying models as well. So for these, for me, that's like these three kind of get a green light. As far as like, data protection stuff, ChatGPT, it's a little bit under the covers, right? You got to go do something if you don't want it to improve the model. I'll kind of skip over the security and compliance because it's basically the same as the rest of those platforms as well. We talked about the limits for the number of files as well for ChatGPT projects. You can only do 20 of those, 40 if you're paying more. You can upload 10 files at a time as well. And then this talks about researcher again. This is not correct at this time. You can't use researcher and analyst within your notebook right now with Copilot. But again, the notebook is going to use those 20 references for its grounding. Then you can do up to 50 for notebook, 200,000 tokens for the other as well. So I think I'm going to skip over this again as well because it talks about like the researcher. That is not correct at this time, but you do get the overall better Microsoft EU data security, the data boundaries, multi-geo, things like that in the Copilot world as well. So anything to add to that, Andy, or should we kind of get into what we use projects for and some of our examples?
So I actually asked that in the chat on LinkedIn. I know you brought it up here on the YouTube stream as well, but I am curious to see those that are joining in live, what you're using some of the project capabilities, notebooks for, and for some of your work. But yeah, I think we should dive in, talk a little bit around kind of what we use these for, and some of our use case, and maybe inspire some others that are participating here to share their stories as well.
Yeah, I think it's good to set the stage, with like, here's the back of the box, right? But I am boring myself going through that table, but I think it was good to kind of like, we want to level set
Yep.
and get into it. Do you want me to start first with kind of my couple things I've used projects and notebooks for, or do you want to jump in?
Let me jump in.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll let you share your screen.
yeah, let me go ahead and do that now.
Cool. Yeah, you just take it over.
All right.
There we go.
Here we are. I'm starting off with Claude. If you haven't seen it, this is Claude, and this is from Anthropic. They're, I think, an offshoot of OpenAI. A number of their team actually, I think, started at OpenAI. And Claude kind of has their own version, their own mission of what they're hoping to do with AI. So this is what they call the desktop app on their on the Mac client. Every AI that we're working with nowadays is really based around a chat centric experience. It's no different in Claude. It's the same in ChatGPT. It's the same in Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's even the same in Notebook LM and Gemini as well. So this is Claude. So what am I using it for? Typically independent conversations, a lot of Microsoft research. You'll see Microsoft listed here throughout. A lot of Microsoft research, consolidating sources. So for me, in my role within my organization, I actually work on the Microsoft collaboration team. We have administrative responsibilities, but I'm also in charge of user adoption, training, and education. And I'm leading our Copilot program within the organization as well. And so I'm halfway into the administration space, the governance space, a lot of the security space, and then the user adoption space. And so I spend a lot of my time working with Microsoft articles on their support side, support.microsoft.com, but I'm also in the documentation side, which a lot of that's like learn.microsoft.com and some of the technical articles they have over there. And a lot of times I'm trying to fit together the pieces of the story where you get the how-to over here, and then you get some of the limits and technical capabilities over there, and then you kind of got to put it together to be able to answer like all of the questions. For example, with a Microsoft Teams meeting, who has access to be able to manage the Teams meeting recordings and transcriptions and use Copilot in it before, during, and after the meeting? Those are questions that we need to be able to answer. And so a lot of times I'm having to go to a couple of different sources to kind of piece all that together. And so what I'll use things like projects for is to have some conversations around some of that content. And then based off of that, try to use some of these tools to draft a narrative around that. I'm a storyteller. I like providing a narrative and a story and getting people to connect in that way. And so what I'm able to do is go and pull that content, start drafting something around it, and then give the AI the ability to go in and assume a role or a persona and help me to kind of see some of the ins and outs of that. But early on, it's been a challenge in doing some of this because it's all individual conversations. And so now we've got the ability to go through and start working with like projects. So I can take this article where I'm working at things on like a Microsoft Teams meeting guide and updating that and making sure that it's accurate, up to date, and it's got that narrative in it. I can take this and I can start to drop it into maybe a project that I'm working on. And as part of that project, I would be able to start adding in project knowledge. So I might have a couple of documents where I just have some technical limitations associated with the Teams meeting types. Then I might have a couple of documents where I'm looking at the actual how-to of those articles. And then I can actually start piecing that together right inside of here. So with working within the limits, like I might have to upload from the device. Fortunately for us, especially with the Microsoft content, most of their technical articles can be exported as a PDF, and that's actually built right into the user interface from Microsoft. So I can pull that as a PDF and upload it into the document. I just have to remind myself when I go in here later on, that might not be the most up-to-date thing. The other thing is I can start building my conversations around within this project. Now, this is a brand new project. There's no artifacts inside of here. I wanted people to see what it looks like from the Claude perspective. right away. But I can go in and, for this particular chat, I can have files associated with it. But for the project, I can also have files that are associated with it globally for the project. I can go in and, based off of Claude's capabilities, maybe just use the training data or the project knowledge, or extend it to things like the web and other services and connectors. I can have it do extended thinking, which is like the O3 model in ChatGPT for deep reasoning. I can also have it do deep research, much like we get with a researcher agent for Microsoft 365 Copilot, or for um, uh, the deep research in ChatGPT. And then I get to work with like the various models that are there, and I can kind of pick and choose that adventure. But the projects are going to allow me to start bringing together the conversations that are important for that topic, user adoption education training, and then I can start bringing that together in like one consolidated place, and like building out that content. Now, I only have a couple of projects that I'm currently experimenting with inside of Claude. I have a ton of individual conversations, but admittedly, this is not the first place that I go when I'm doing Gen AI. My enterprise is built around M365 Copilot, so that's where I start, and so that's where I go, and that's where like a lot of my comparisons start. But this just I wanted to give a high level overview of what Claude looks like, and then just give you an idea of potentially what the conversation type looks like. So I actually uploaded a PDF that was built off of some content that I developed. I gave it the prompt, told it what I'm looking for, and just like any other chatbots, I get the outcome and the experience from that. I can have conversation back and forth with it. I can copy it to the clipboard. I can continue to iterate against it. And then I can star and rename this kind of stuff. I can even go, if I need to, share this conversation with someone that's external, or I can go and start like brand new chat. But this just kind of gives I think, a high level overview of what Claude looks like and what it would look like for managing a project inside of here. Now I'll just switch gears and I'll take you over into ChatGPT. Now, this one's interesting because as a Mac user, I have a couple of options to choose from when it comes to my ChatGPT experience. I can go through the web. I can also go through two different versions of a desktop app. So again, I'm on Mac, and there's a standalone desktop app that you can get from the App Store, but then there's a progressive web app that's based off of the web. And the progressive web app actually has newer features before the desktop gets it. It has some more advanced features. So I find myself actually going back and forth between the two. So like I'll put this one over in the sidebar over here, and then let me go and grab the other one. This is like this is the progressive web app, and I know that because it's got a couple of my web app plugins like over here. At the core, they're very similar as you're looking at this. But for some reason, the progressive web app brings in some of the newer capabilities, like the Sora video creator is shortcutted inside of there. As I opened this up this afternoon to get started for today's webinar, it told me that there's the new ChatGPT agent that can interact with content on my computer, which is like RPA, robotic process automation, and some of that intake. The desktop app in the background, this guy over here, doesn't have that yet. It hasn't deployed that just yet, but it is showing up in the progressive web app version of this. So that being said, kind of lay of the land, I'm going back and forth between the different desktop apps in ChatGPT just to kind of experiment and see like what's actually there. But this is a project inside of ChatGPT, so I'm just going to expand this one a little bit. And with this one, I'm always exploring note taking. John and I, we've done a couple of deep dives on note taking. We're always looking for that like perfect note taking device and that that productivity shortcut. So I'm always experimenting with like note taking methodologies, tools, processes, and I'm full disclosure, I'm really interested in this concept of like second brain, but I think second brain plugged in with like AI is like really, really fascinating. And so like that's a whole other topic. But you can see like I'm doing some research around that. Like, so I've got a number of different conversations that are happening here around specific note taking. But in comparing with Claude, I can consolidate conversations. I can add project files if I need to pull those in, just like I can with the other. And I can also add custom instructions. And this is how the GPT is actually going to respond to me, and how it does things like requirements gathering, how it interacts with me, outputs and formats. I'm not leveraging that for this particular set of activities, this particular project. I'm doing a lot of independent conversations, and I kind of build off of those. So I'll do a little bit of research over here. What kind of tools does OneNote support for uh, mapping? And then I might go into a new conversation and say, well, what's this kind of method, and like how could I potentially apply this in some of like the note taking stuff that I'm currently working with. Um, so I'll have some projects built around that. I do a lot of research through various projects. So like I might do research around things like workshops that I'm thinking about, just to generate some ideas and start brainstorming some topics and some high level outlines that I'm going to go and build content around. It helps me to like kind of do a brain dump and get those things out, and then I can manage it kind of in one place. And just to tie it in with Claude, I do have the ability to pick the different models that I want to work with inside of here, including some of the experimental models. And just like John, I am paying for ChatGPT as well, just because I like to see what's out there and like what's on the cutting edge. Admittedly, I'm a little further behind when it comes to working with Gemini. I don't experiment as much with Gemini, even though in the last few months their models are starting to kind of reach the top of the benchmarking charts that are out there. I just don't think AI in Google immediately. I think some of the other ones. So admittedly, I don't have a whole lot of projects kind of set up over here, but I do take the same prompt, and I will make an effort to try and bring it across the three different AIs, or four if you count Copilot, just to see what the output's going to be. Now that's really dry, but I do want to show you a fun one that I have been experimenting with. So let me actually go back to this window, and I'll show you this. When I was in like middle school, we had a kind of computer math class, and there was a mini golf game there based off of geometry. And so you'd have to like hit the ball at like a certain angle, and you try to get like a hole in one, or as close as you could. And I always remembered that game, and I just remembered it being really fun. And I remember specifically I was playing one day, and like it was a direct like line to the hole, but you could never get a hole in one if you hit it direct. So I hit it backwards and bounced it and made it go, instead of like 90 degrees straight up, 90 degrees straight down. And then it went straight back up, and I got a hole in one. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I never forgot that game. And so I've been using projects to experiment on creating an interactive mini golf game. And what I've actually done is I've actually, I guess we call this vibe coding. I've vibe coded a version of the mini golf game, and taking advantage of like Copilot, or sorry, of Canvas in ChatGPT and in Claude. I've got a working version of this that I can go and I can play in the Canvas app. So like I can actually preview the mini golf game as I'm like updating it, and I'm adding things like obstacles to it, and I'm like changing up like the course layout. And so like I'm able to kind of recreate that game that I played as a kid.
That's
I
so
had to like
cool.
figure out the physics to like how does it like know to drop into the hole, and like how does it know like when to like reset the course to go on to like a new one. But yeah, I built a vibe coded a mini golf game using projects. And so like every time I iterate through, I'll start a new conversation, so the previous version continues to work, and then I'm able to go in and kind of experiment with like adding a new obstacle, or changing like making the course wider or shorter or longer, and adding multiple obstacles and bigger and smaller obstacles. And like I'm learning a lot about like the development that goes in the background of this. And full disclosure for anybody who's like watching this later on, this is using React and Canvas inside of ChatGPT, but I have the same thing that I run inside of Claude, just to kind of experiment. And I think I ran in Gemini also. So that's been a fun little project for me to to kind of figure out. And then it's been something cool to kind of play with the kids. I'm like, hey guys, come over here and like, check this out. You guys want to like play some mini golf? And so like my youngest is like, yeah, mini golf, let's do it. And you see sometimes there's like some run errors and things like that. But that's been a fun little project that I've been
awesome.
experimenting on. So that's a few of the things that I've been using projects for.
That's pretty awesome. I like that idea of using it to like create something and kind of adding, files and adding chats to around that project of creating a game or creating a piece of software. I've done something a little bit, I guess, more on Rails, or within, kind of the confines of what I've understood projects and notebooks to be. I'll show 2 of my projects, and then I'll show a couple of the Copilot notebooks. So starting out in the ChatGPT world, because that's what I've had the longest in the space, is 2 scenarios that I've got is one, preparing for a conference that I have coming. Vegas, I went to Denver. I've done spring before Copilot Notebooks existed. So I made a project about that upcoming event, right? And I didn't add any files to this particular one because I was working on the ideas, right? I was working through the presentation. And what I did instead is you can leverage projects. Something that's special about projects is you can kind of ground it in how you want it to respond, or I want this information to kind of be baked into the project. So what I did is I added in like a little bit of, like a persona, like, hey, I need you to help me plan for my conference. Here's the dates where the conference is. Here's where the hotel is. I'm going to be driving from this location, so I could plan my route. I could have it help me with like stops along the way. I'm going to be doing 2 breakout sessions. And then I put the entire abstract for the session so that was just like part of the notebook. It knows what the topics are. And then I also put like about me, hey, I'm an MVP. This is kind of the stuff that I focus on. I'm traveling on my own, so I don't really want to mention my employer here because, I'm not there as an enterprise architect. I'm there as an MVP. So like it kind of would know that and it would respond properly for me. And then I was able to basically use it as kind of my assistant throughout planning the conference and while I was there. So like, whenever I was planning on creating the slide deck, I was like, okay, I need to like pull resources together for a resources slide. What is out there? So it was finding me a bunch of links, and I was able to put those into a reference guide. This was really helpful as well. Where's the slide feedback? This one right here. Where it's like, okay, I'm building these slides and I've got like the concept of the slide. What do you think about it? So I would take a picture of the slide, I would throw it into the project and then say, here's the first one. And it's like, well, I like this, here's some stuff that you could kind of, change it to make it a little bit more visually appealing. So then it kind of changed the layout for me. Like, okay, good. Let's go with the next slide. It's kind of light. What should I add into it? And it was helping me kind of fill out the construction of the content. And then also because it knew what my presentations were going to be about, I was able to go here to pivot. And the weekend before, the Friday before I left to go to Denver, Microsoft unfortunately announced that Copilot Actions was going away. So one of the things that I was going to talk about was going away. So I was able to, in the project, say, I've got this message center post. What do you think I should do? How should I pivot? And it was like, okay, well, why don't we talk about scheduled prompts, or why don't we talk about something else? It was kind of helping me, adjust to doing a different presentation instead. And it was nice because I didn't have to tell ChatGPT all about what I do and all about what my, sessions are about. That was like baked into the project. So I was able to kind of be a little bit more agile because of that. Now, the second one that I'll show before I leave ChatGPT and talk about Copilot is I've organized a project around my personal health. And I've got an idea to do kind of something similar with like my house. Like you move into a new house and you've got all of these like owner's manuals, right? For like the microwave and the refrigerator and the stove and the air conditioner and all this stuff. Like, what if you added that to a ChatGPT project or a Copilot notebook, and then you would have this kind of little rag model of everything that is related to your house. You know, hey, I need to get paint, and it would just go like, know what swatches there were, things like that. So what I did with my health is I actually used files this time. I went out to Quest Diagnostics and I uploaded all of my blood work to the project. So I've got like a year and a half of blood panels that it can know about. And then again, I went in here and I said, hey, this is about me. I'm diabetic. I've got these conditions. These are the medications I'm taking. These are my goals, right? Like I want to keep my A1C below this amount. I want to get my cholesterol down below 70, or above 60 for the good cholesterol, and then also like, here's the stuff that like we like to eat, here's where we're located. We're in the middle of the country in Kansas City. Don't offer fresh seafood because we don't have, fresh sushi in our area. Also like my kids are picky eaters. These are kind of the things that they like to eat. And then I can use that now to say, all right, without uploading my blood work, I was able to say like, hey, what am I looking like? How am I progressing? So it kind of went through and was like, okay, based off of your goal that's in the custom instructions, and then the file that I know about, the latest file is from like May 16th, here's a scoring basically of everything. And it's like, all right, so, you need to improve this. This is looking pretty good. This one, you need to get the good cholesterol up. You're good on your liver. You're good on these things, and then start drafting a plan in here. I was able to start doing like healthy lunch ideas, right? Like, hey, I want to do this. Well, I know that your data is this, and I know that your goal is that from the elsewhere in the project. So I'm going to give you guidance, on like different things that you can make for healthy lunches to try to like, lower your cholesterol, things like that. So that's something I've been using in the ChatGPT world, is kind of uploading my own personal data, and all the data hawks will like freak out about it. But it's like, I'm in control of my HIPAA data. If I want to upload my blood work, I'm going to do it, and that's what I did. I'm not training the model though. I did turn that off. Over in the Copilot space, I'm a little bit newer, right? So a little bit newer to the Copilot notebooks. I've created a couple of notebooks. I kind of shifted like the Denver thing that was in April. I moved to a Copilot notebook work stream for the May Las Vegas trip because I got access to notebooks in our MVP tenant. So kind of doing the same type of idea. I was able to say, hey, you're my planning assistant. Here's all the information I'm going to be presenting with Andy. Here's our breakout session. Here's our workshop that we're going to be doing. Give it all of that seed data basically, and then all of our planning was in Loop notebooks or Loop note pages. So every time me and Andy had a meeting, we were using Facilitator. And this is where like the stitching together of M365 is really helpful, because you have a meeting in Microsoft Teams and it's on the topic of like the conference that's coming up. Use Facilitator. It took the notes automatically. Then I went into the notebook right here. I added a reference, and I would add that meeting from there. So I would do like, the planning, I think is what they were called, like content planning. Mm-hmm. I would add the date of that meeting, and now those notes are part of the notebook, right? So you're kind of like dumping all of the meeting planning notes into it. And then also I've got our actual slide deck. I'm able to link it in there. So unlike ChatGPT, where you're uploading the file and it's stored like inside the container, you can see here that I've kind of got like this little link icon. That's because it's living on a SharePoint. I'm just adding a reference to it. I'm not moving the actual file. So we can still collaborate on it. We can still work together with it, but the notebook is aware of it through a linking reference. And then you can see in the chat at the end of our workspace, our workshop, I was able to say like, hey, summarize the workshop. And it's like, okay, in the custom instructions, I know what your workshop was called. I know the abstract. And then I know all of the information in the slide deck. So it referenced the slide deck. And it was able to give me like, here's a rundown of the entire, workshop that you gave. You could write a blog post about it, or you could turn it in to something else and kind of reuse that content. So that's kind of the, work related option. And then the personal thing I'm using for is this fishing concept. So I just bought a new kayak and we're trying to like get into fishing. My wife and I, we inherited like 500 lures that we don't know anything about, and we're like trying to learn about it and stuff. So I uploaded like the manuals for those things that I bought, the kayak that I bought. So it's aware of it. Now in the chat, I'm able to say like, hey, what maintenance should I do with my kayak? And it would like go and it would grab those from that information. Now, this is where I ran into an issue. I went and I thought that I could click the little arrow right here and I could click a link and then I would be able to like just paste in the URL for like the support website. However, that doesn't work. If I go to like https microsoft.com, you'll see it says URLs can't be added, the web URLs. So this is that thing that David said earlier is going to be coming. It's on the roadmap. So I'll be very excited for that because now I'll just kind of be able to point it to different things. And instead of like downloading the manual for my refrigerator, like maybe I could just link to it from the Whirlpool website and just have the PDF hosted by somebody else and I could link to it instead. I think that would be really nice. But that's the same type of thing. I'm basically able to say, hey, in the custom instructions, this is where I'm at. These are the lakes that we like to go to, respond in this. These are my family and their ages, so don't recommend something that like my 7-year-old can't do, right? Like try to remember that. So then I was able to go in and say, hey, what should I do today at Watkins Mill, which is a state park that's nearby? And it was like, well, based on like, I know where you're at. I can go look up the weather. I can look up the information. It was able to, give me some ideas here as well. Now, that gets into the other limitation that I ran into is that you can add content, but I found that I can't analyze images. So that's the other thing that I'm kind of struggling with right now is in ChatGPT. What I've done is I've taken pictures of, I've got like 30 of these boxes of lures. I took a picture of it and then I asked ChatGPT to like recognize what they are and tell me like when to use them, where to use them, how to use them, what they catch, things like that. Unfortunately, in Copilot, if you're working inside the notebook, it won't analyze. So if I open up that chat right here and I say like, hey, I've got a ton of these, do you understand what I want? Yes, I understand what you want me to do. Like, okay, great. Now here's the first one. And I added the picture and it just kept saying, I'm sorry, I don't think I saw that image. So that's kind of a challenge that I'm running into. But my workaround, before I give it back to you, Andy, is I was able to go in here. If I go to all conversations, maybe I can find this analyzing lures. For that one, I just did the exact same thing and I uploaded the picture. Oh, well, that's another example of it not working. But if I did it in a regular conversation, it would work. And then what I did is I clicked the ... dots next to it right here. And then you can add it to a notebook later. So that was able to like kind of add it to the knowledge base of the information. However, so that's what Joe is saying in the chat here is exactly what I did. Like do it in the regular chat that has more capabilities, and then you can lift that chat and put it in the notebook later on. So that's my recommendation until it gets a little bit more feature functionality, like analyzing images, being able to add agents and add web links. try doing your actual chatting in the regular chat, and then when you're done with it, go shift it into the notebook so you get the benefits of like that RAG knowledge for the notebook. So I went to a lot of places there, Andy, but that's a bit of like a kind of quasi business, like MVP type of scenario, and a personal scenario for each of the solutions. And I'm kind of shifting my stuff. I'm trying to recreate everything over in Copilot notebooks and just get more used to it. Something that was really helpful for me is this home lab. This is one where I'm not uploading pictures. I'm not, doing a lot of advanced stuff, but it is super, super useful just to get advice on my home network. Like, hey, I've got a Synology NAS, I've got this information, and now that's part of the notebook, so it remembers that information. And I will show one last thing is if you go into the settings for your chat, well, let me go back to the main chat. As you're chatting along, there's a new feature now for Copilot memory. So now you can see like, hey, John wants like some help organizing tackle boxes. This is the size. He's considering these things. He's considering buying this for, these areas. So it's starting to remember things about me, and I can manage that Copilot memory in the settings as well. So,
there was a great comment in the chat. I want to bring that up as you were demoing this.
Yeah, thanks.
Emily shared that she does projects for meal planning, and admittedly, I've done that as well. I didn't show it on the screen here. I've got a picky eater, and so figuring out a meal plan for him, it's been a little bit of a challenge. But this has kind of helped to like break it up so that we're not eating chicken nuggets and French fries every single night. But having like this tool help with things like meal planning, foods that you like and you dislike, food allergies, and some of the goals for that, as well as I love this taking pictures of the things that you have and asking it to meal plan. I think that's an amazing use case. So thank you for sharing that way.
We can actually mock that up
as well.
Yeah, you want to mock one of those up and just kind of show how do we create a notebook, and we'll kind of try that scenario. So
as we're doing this, though, I think it is important that we expand. We're going to focus in on Copilot for just a little while. We're Microsoft MVPs. And a lot of this is to take what Copilot has been doing and comparing that with some of the other tools that are out there. So as we're doing this, we are going to be comparing a little bit, though, with Copilot Chat as a standalone, Copilot Pages, and then a notebook, and then kind of like build up into that. So I think let's start basic with like the chat capability, and then bring the pages into the conversation, and then build up into the notebook.
So taking like Emily's concept here, I think that's a really good example because it's something I've done too, is like, and there's a fun thing to demo. So I put in, here's my diet situation, right? Here's the stuff that like my wife doesn't like: eggs, tomatoes. We all like Mexican food. We like sandwiches, stuff like that. Give me a Monday through Friday meal plan based on this info. So this is just text based, right? I'm just doing like, here's my preferences and here's that info. It updated the memory. So see, it like captured that as memory for me now. That's really cool. And then now it's got, okay, Monday, you're going to do chicken quesadillas. For you, add avocado because you like avocados. Use mild teriyaki to keep it kid friendly. So there's like a really generic type of thing. Now, to add the picture onto it, this is what I like doing, is Reddit Fridge Detective. Have you ever seen this subreddit, Andy?
I have not, but I have a feeling that I will soon.
This is so fun. So Fridge Detective is people say, what does my fridge say about me? And they take pictures of their refrigerator. So I use this as demos, and like, I'm going to like save this image right here, and it's in my downloads folder. That way, now I can say, all right, I've got a meal plan. Look at this image of my fridge and adjust the meal plan for what you see in my fridge currently. Also give me a shopping list for the stuff you don't see that I need to buy, right? So now I can go in, I can add content. We're going to upload the content by clicking that up arrow right there. And then I wonder if it'll work with a WebP file. I might have to take a screenshot of it instead, but we'll see if it works. So now I've got that picture attached to my request. Based on what you already have, things like yogurt, milk, juice, fresh produce. So it was able to see some of those items inside of the refrigerator. And now it's got those same, ideas, but it was able to give me what I need to complete those meals as well. So I could say like, give me a printable list. And we'll see if maybe it will write some Python to give me like an actual PDF or so it's giving me an attachment here in a second. There it is. So there's a PDF of my grocery list. And I wonder what it looks like. It's just plain text. So kind of lame, but that's kind of taking that concept and adding onto it as well. Now, what we can do if we want to adjust this this menu right here, say that I want to make some changes to it, I don't have to go back and forth and just like only do it with chat. Instead, we would click this button right here, which is edit in pages. If I click that, now it's going to lift that response and it's going to move it over to an adjustable collaborative space. From here, I can also give access to Andy. So I can say like, you know what, I want to send this to Andy Honeycutt in our dev tenant, and I want to make it so he can edit it. And then now I've got that link. I can go in to our private chat here, and I can send that to you, Andy. Oh, wait, that's adding content. There's the private chat. So I can send that to you, and then whenever Andy clicks on that link, we'll see his picture up here at the top. So like, you could send it to like your spouse, and you could start working through and like, like I like that. I add avocado. I'm going to say buy guac at the store, right? Like I don't want to make my own guac. I'm just going to buy some prepackaged stuff or something, right? Use fresh veggies like grab rice and chicken. So you can go through and you can start editing some of those items. You can like kind of take this and like transform it into a table if you want to. Do things like that to kind of start building out your list. Like here's another item. This is just bullet points. So I'm going to change that from a bullet point to a checklist, right? So now I can actually check those off the list. And because it's a Loop page, when I'm at the grocery store, I could bring up the Loop app on my phone and I could have that list with checkboxes on my phone. And I could be like, going through the store, checking things off, which is pretty cool. We can also go through here, Andy. This might be something we would want to do is highlight this information right here. And how do I get into that?
I updated your shopping list, by the way, for Mexican night on Monday.
Oh, thank you. Nice. Mild salsa.
No. Totally mild salsa. Now with spicy jalapeno peppers. And if you know that dragons love tacos.
So in here, one thing that we're limited on inside of the Copilot Pages area is we're limited in the ability to use Copilot within this Loop page. However, if I go into the Loop website, we can pick up where we left off. So if I go here, this is really helpful because you have like your recent items. If I go into recent, there's that same page I was working on, except now I have a Copilot icon. So I can kind of pick up where I left off and I can grab this list right here. I can rewrite with Copilot and say, organize this list by grocery aisle, right? So like, I don't want to zigzag all over the grocery store. So instead, give me this list. Let's reformat it a little bit and see if we can build it out. There we go. So now Copilot has organized that by groceries, And again, I would want to go here and I just want to make it into a checklist again. So it kind of didn't really do exactly what I wanted because I didn't tell it to keep the checkboxes. But there we go. I'm able to like organize it by aisle. So, and if I go back to the chat and we scroll down, see now it has organized that updated immediately, right? I'm not waiting for like a refresh or anything like that. So that's going from a chat and then working with the content in a page. Now, if you wanted to like kind of create a meal planning notebook, so you could keep doing this every week, you can click up here at the top, you could add it to a notebook. So this page, I could add the page to a notebook. I also could add the chat to a notebook if I wanted to. So I'm going to add the page to a notebook first. And I could add it to one of my existing notebooks right here. But I don't want to do that. I don't have a notebook yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to collapse this. We're going to go create a notebook. So I'm going to make a new notebook. I'm going to call it Family Meal Planning. I wonder if I can do a plate maybe.
A burrito.
Add an emoji to it, try to make it fun, make it stand out a little bit. So you're kind of adding an icon to your notebook. And now I could go and I could add this chat to the notebook. The way you do that is you do it with the dots right here. You click add to notebook, and then I may have to refresh this page. Let's refresh it. Go back to our conversation, add to notebook. I was probably doing it too fast. And where's my meal planning? I guess it's going to take a little while for it to show up. Let's try it again here. Family meal planning. No.
Double check and make sure it created your notebook.
Okay. Yeah. Let's check that. I think it did because I went to the list. Yeah, there it is. Oh, wait. Did not create? Or is it like doing a cache thing? Like a weird caching? It showed there for a second and then it like blipped away. Okay. Well, let's try it again. Family meal planning. And actually this time when I open this up, I noticed that like the individual page is already there. So I am going to just add that as a reference. Maybe it'll work better when I actually have a piece of content in it. So I could add that. It's building that reference into the notebook. This is where, again, it'd be really nice. You could like add a link and, add like your all recipes profile or something like that. That'd be pretty cool to be able to do that. And is that link not there? Yeah, we might be running into a little bit of bugginess with this. Okay, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So I added it back in that way. And then I don't have any Copilot chats yet. What I would want to do is I'd want to go add a chat to the notebook. Fingers crossed, is it going to show this time? There we go. Family meal planning. Maybe I messed it up by adding an emoji to it. But now under family meal planning, we've got not only that link, there's the Copilot page. It was a refresh issue. But in the chat, there's that chat that we had before. It's now in this location. And what I would probably want to do, Andy, is I probably would want to take everything except for the Monday, Friday thing. I would want to copy that, go back to the notebook, and then add that into my Copilot instructions, as well as other things like always reply with the meal plan in a table format, right? So like last time it did it as a bulleted list. This time, if I say, give me a meal plan for 14 days, we'll do something a little bit different. We'll see if it comes back with a table, if it respects that instruction that I gave it for my preference. Okay, so it's avoiding certain things because I put that in the instructions, and there we go. Now it's got a table format right there for me because I told it I want a table. And you can see that like it also knew about the last thing that we talked about, which was the family-friendly meals. So it referenced that loop notebook or that loop page, and it referenced it right there as well. So this chat is aware that it's in the notebook. Now, the thing we've run into is that issue of like, let me save this image right here. And so that's who are we? We just cleaned it out. So if I go in there and say, what's in this pic of my fridge, and we add that, it looks like it's going to work, but chances are it's probably going to say that it can't, oh, are you going to upload your image? It's probably going to say something like that. At least it did in the past. Yeah, see, I can't view images directly at the moment, but if you describe what's in your fridge. So that's one of those gaps, that we would want to go back over here, work with it, and then pull it into the notebook later on. So, but hopefully that shows kind of a progression, Andy, of what Emily was talking about. What we would have done like a year ago is just work in ChatGPT. Maybe you would have made a custom GPT inside of Copilot. You could go create an agent, and you could use Agent Builder, to create that. But like, if I want to remember the things that I had last week, or the things that I said, hey, I really like this, I really like that. If I work with it in a notebook, it's going to be kind of a living container where if I was doing it with a custom agent, an Agent Builder agent, I would have to go in and I would have to say, go edit the agent and tell the agent, I really liked what we had on Wednesday night. These quesadillas were really good. Make that a favorite of mine. I'd have to like bake that into the instructions for the agent. If it's in a notebook, that would be in the body, the core, the content corpus of the notebook. So I would have that information already. I wouldn't have to like go manually put it somewhere. So that would be really helpful. All right. So what do we have in the chat here? We got Joe talking about, glad we attended this. I have a notebook users since the original beta. Awesome, Joe. I'm glad that it's helpful for you. I think it's really nice, like the notebook concept, rather than thinking of it as taking notes like you would in a OneNote, I'm thinking of it as collecting junk into a space so that I can use it later on. And that's more my style of taking notes these days. I'm kind of, I'm not in like college anymore. I'm not in academics. So I'm not like hardcore taking notes of like what a professor's saying, right? I like the idea of like, we've got AI now. Let Facilitator do that for me, take my notes for me, and then pull it in, and then I can ask about those notes, right? So I think that's a huge benefit when you stitch together the meeting concept and the article, the asset that comes out of it is a loop notebook or a loop page. Adding that to a container about the project you're working on kind of marries those concepts together.
Absolutely.
The only thing we're missing really, Andy, is just, I want to take that and I want to share that entire, project. Yep. So it's like, I'm not in a meeting by myself. I'm in a meeting with you. Let's put the notes together and we can both chat about it, Okay, so that's kind of the basics of like, we've talked about our use cases, some of the things we've done with Copilot notebooks. We've talked about some of the like mechanics of using it, right? How to create it, how to add something to it, how to have a new chat. The new chat is up here at the top. When you use this bar at the top, you're basically adding a new chat to this container down here at the bottom. So that's how you add something on the fly. But we talked about adding old things, like this is a Docker Swarm thing. I can add that. So it's already in another notebook. I would have to take it out of my home lab notebook and move it to another one. But you can like go through and you can select different notebooks, for that. We talked about some of the wish list items that I have. Like one, soon we're going to get the ability to add agents to the notebook. And I'll just show you guys that message center post. So here it is. It's 493288 is the message center. Let me zoom in on this. And it's basically saying that you'll be able to use Researcher without leaving the Copilot notebook. So you'll be able to toggle that on and use that. The rollout, it says, is going to start in July. So hopefully by the end of this month, but it is still in development right there. So, maybe not hold our breath a little bit, but that will be very welcome to be able to use the researching capabilities. Notebook sharing, I haven't seen anything about if notebooks are going to be shareable in the future. So that's kind of an unknown, still a wish list item for me.
I checked the roadmap, and there's nothing on the roadmap about that currently.
Yeah, so there's nothing out there publicly about that. Another thing before we talk about, the notebook LM style of like doing audio overviews, the last thing I would like to kind of request is I really would like to add other items to the notebook other than just files. So like if I'm in a notebook and say I've got this notebook about this conference that we're working on, I can go into add content and I can just do files, right? I can do loop files, PDFs, Word, PowerPoint, Excel documents, and I can do stuff like that. It would be really nice if I could add entire meetings to the thing. So if I could associate a meeting and it would have the notes, the shared files, and the people that were in the meeting, if it was like aware of that and aware of like the meeting recap. So if I could add that object entirely to it, unfortunately, it's just aware of like the files that were in the meeting. And then it would be really nice also if I could add people to like the reference material. So I could say like, this is a project about X, Y, and Z, add people to it. And it would like, say like, here's the roster of people who are associated with the project. This guy's the project manager. These two people are the tech leads. This is the, product manager for it. I would be able to kind of say who's who so that whenever I'm asking like for a strategy or I'm asking for like, like, hey, who should I invite to such and such meeting about this topic? It would know who plays what role and it could kind of help me with who to include or not include in a meeting. I think that would be really cool as well. So if it was a little bit more people-centric, I kind of just want like a wider graph view of the reference material would be really nice. Anything you've run into, Andy, with your experience with Copilot notebooks?
Adding pre-existing conversations. So
like Teams chats?
No, Copilot conversations.
Okay.
So if the conversation is a little bit older, if it doesn't show up in that left-hand navigation right over there, finding those older conversations and being able to bring those into some of my notebooks has been a challenge. So I think that's something that's area of opportunity to be addressed.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed here, so like I'm just kind of scrolling through all conversations, there's everything. And you can see if it's in a notebook, you see this little notebook icon, but like this is not in my list of conversations. I click on that. There's no add to notebook there.
Right.
So those older conversations. I wonder though, if I go up here, I can't add it to the notebook. That's the chat settings, isn't it? Okay. Well, yeah, that would be really nice.
Now, I do want to share one positive use case. And I completely missed on this until you started demoing the M365 conference workshop. So if you'll bring that one back up.
Sure. Here you go.
Already sharing. We did all of our planning here. And you were keeping things running here in the notebook, but like we did all of our planning through a combination of Teams meetings with recordings, use a facilitator to take notes for us automatically. That created Copilot pages / loop pages that we could quickly recap and reference as we were moving along individually, asynchronously, or when we were meeting together. You also included some of the content that we created in PowerPoint presentation and other content. And then you had the ability to go back in and ask Copilot follow-up questions. I got this idea after we finished the conference, and I experimented with it at TechCon 365 in Seattle. Our friend Daniel Christian and I co-presented a workshop there that was very similar to what we had done. It's a day in the life of Copilot. And as we were doing our planning meetings, we were recording those meetings. And there were times in those meetings with Daniel where I was completely off the keyboard and just back, and we were letting facilitator run. And then when it was over, I went back and I had Copilot build the outline based off of what Daniel and I had actually talked about in a document. And then 5 minutes later, Daniel had an outline as a Word document, and we were able to both work from that. And then I started organizing it, putting it together in some notebooks. But at the actual conference, I had the idea based off of a demo that you and I had done, and then Daniel and I had done. We recorded a Teams meeting, and we did the back and forth conversation in the Teams meeting, and then we had facilitator running. But the idea was, it'd be really cool to use this as a way to recap this actual session that people are in, use this to recap my breakout session. And so for the rest of TechCon, what I did was every time I delivered a session, I had a Teams meeting running in the background, capturing my screen and my audio. And it was recording that to facilitator. And when people would ask me questions during the workshop, I would repeat the question out loud and then make the answer. Or I would say, that's a good item for follow-up. I'm going to add that to my action items. And so when the session was over, I was able to go back in because I had a transcription, and I was able to create an FAQ based off of the session. And I knew what I needed to follow up on like afterward. And so Notebooks allows us another way to bring that together. So from a trainer perspective, Notebooks are a game changer because I can create my content, put it in the notebook. I can have my planning calls and my prep calls, put them in the notebook. I can have conversations and dig into certain topics and put them in the notebook. But I can also record the session with consent and take the transcription. That's a Word document, and put it in the notebook. And then I can use Copilot to ask questions of that session that I delivered. Feedback, areas of opportunity, create FAQs, answer questions, unanswered questions. And I can send that to a Copilot page, and I can put it in the notebook. And now I'm building out a repository of all the things related to that particular breakout session or that training class. And I can go back and I can very quickly update content based off of feedback or questions. A trainer trick is to try and remember to anticipate questions and answers. Well, now I just captured a couple of these sessions, and I can very quickly go back through Copilot and say, hey, these last 3 sessions had some outstanding questions. Pull all those questions together, consolidate based off a topic or overlap, organize, and let's look at the existing content that I have, and let's create a plan to go back and update my content. That process manually takes hours. With this, it literally takes minutes. Within 15 minutes of wrapping up a session, bam, I got everything that I need, and I am off and running. And so
here's kind of showing that what you were talking about, Andy. Yeah. Like, I went into one of these meetings from like the middle of June, went to the transcript, hit download, and downloaded it as a doc file. And then, we could add that document. Sorry, I keep flipping. This is the Word document right here for the transcript. So that's in my downloads folder. I could just go right here, upload, and then I could upload that transcript. And now you've got the raw transcript as part of the notebook. So that's what Andy's talking about. Like, you could take the full transcript and kind of stick it into the file, the notebook. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words.
And if you don't want to do the full transcript, if you've got Copilot, like you've got here in Recap, there's Copilot on the sidebar. You can use Copilot, and you can create things like the FAQ based off of the conversation. You can generate your meeting notes, and then we can take that and put that into a loop page, and then we can bring that into the notebook.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and like our notes are right here. There's the notes from, the notes from the meeting, and we could take that and we could click on it here to open it in the browser. There's the session, and then I could take it and add it to the notebook which I can't do it from this interface, right? Lock page, rename and restyle. Okay, so what I would do is I would like go find that that in the in like the add reference area. You can search for things. So like add reference, and then I do like Copilot planning. There's all the files right there, and that was from which date? 6/16. So maybe I'll have it here 6/16 right there. So now I've added that loop page to the notebook as well as an item. So yeah, that's a way that you can kind of pull it in as well.
And what we're really building around here is actually what I've experienced as the number one use case for Microsoft 365 Copilot, and that's meetings. The number one by far is meeting notes and meeting references. So if you think about using notebooks in this capacity, now you've got your meeting notes, you can have the transcript, you can have the files that are related to it, you can have Copilot generated FAQs and things like that. And now you have a notebook that's dedicated to all things meetings, or a specific type of meeting, or a specific series of meetings. And that's that one-stop shop for you to be able to use Copilot to very quickly narrow down to just that meeting and its topics, and be able to prep you for the next meeting, recap based off of the previous meetings, and look for trends. And as a technical trainer, that's huge for me. That's an amazing game changer. So I love the notebook feature in this capacity, because we're building off the number one use case, and we're doing something more than just generating meeting notes. Now we're creating actionable content that we can go and reuse as other parts of our workflow. And now we're starting to see significant time returned back to our daily processes.
So to shift a little bit to one of the more exciting features that like the users are super stoked about with notebooks, have you seen this roadmap item, Andy? The Copilot can generate audio overviews of your meetings. Have you seen that one yet? So this is coming in August, according to the public roadmap. But this is kind of what Andy was talking about. Like, I wish I could do a podcast version of like the meeting, record an entire session of my conference or something, and then be able to like drill it down and summarize it audio based. That is actually coming. So soon you guys will be able to select how you want to listen to it. If you want one speaker or two speakers, if you want them to go back and forth, and you'll be able to select one or multiple meetings and be able to listen back to a summary of those meetings. And that's the audio overview. Now, if you want to get a taste of what that experience sounds like today, it's built into the Copilot notebooks as well. So if I want to, I can go in the top of any of these notebooks and I can click the little headphones at the top, and that will generate a audio overview of the entirety of the notebook. So if I go here and I hit generating audio, it takes up to 2 minutes. So it says down here at the bottom that it's pulling in all the information. It's building the audio overview for me. And then I'm going to try here. If it comes up here, I'm going to see if I can maybe pipe my audio through the thing here. So let me bring up my Wave Link software, see if I can get this working. So configure Wavelink. So I've got my microphone right here. I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to add Microsoft Edge. I hope that this might work. Okay, so there's Microsoft Edge. I'm not seeing anything come through. So I'm going to change my microphone to my Wavelink stream. You can still hear me, Andy?
Little loud, but yes.
Okay, a little bit loud. All right, let me try to turn
it now. It adjusted.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I saw audio come back through here, so you guys might have heard an echo come through. But in a moment, I'm going to mute my browser. In a moment, we should see here the ability to play the audio overview. Yeah. Can you hear that through my microphone?
No.
No? Let's see here. Let's go into settings, audio.
Yeah, there is a lot to
There it
unpack.
is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it was the issue was my noise cancellation on my microphone. So let me go back to the beginning here, and I'm going to hit play so you guys can hear what the voices sound like. Can you hear it?
No, we lost it.
At how artificial intelligence tools and workflow automation are transforming collaboration, creativity, and everyday work across Microsoft's ecosystem. Whether you're leading a team or just interested in how all these pieces fit together, there is a lot to unpack.
So, and I can also go here and
Absolutely.
I can make it
The
faster.
backbone of what we're discussing today comes from the major session notes, workshops, demos, and technical discussions led by John Moore and Andy Honeycutt, both Microsoft's most valuable professionals.
I can
Their
delete
documentation
it
and all the
and I
event
can
planning
keep
artifacts
it
give
as
us
well.
not just a technical landscape, but also the behind-the-scenes look at how you can use Copilot, agent-driven automation, and creative prompt engineering to get real work done.
That's right. The point isn't just about fancy new features.
So you kind of get the gist there. I'm going to mute the browser again. You kind of get the gist there. Like it's a back and forth. There's a male voice and a female voice kind of going back and forth as a podcast. And I can click keep it. And then this is a new button, actually, Andy. I haven't seen that keep a button before. But
Yeah.
now it is kept in that notebook. So whenever I go out of it and I go back into it, like I'm in my home lab right now, go back in there, it says play audio. That's that audio overview. So I don't have to regenerate it. Now, if I want to, say I add a bunch of stuff to this notebook, I can click regenerate right here, and then it will go through that 2-minute process again and pull the new information as well. But that's a pretty powerful feature. You can basically create a podcast based off of, you know, the entirety of the notebook. A couple things that I've, you know, are on my wish list, and I see David has listed a few things are coming soon. So like references, like more references are coming, sharing is coming. And then he mentioned new audio overview features are coming. My hope, and I don't have any like, you know, roadmap info about this, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to like maybe adjust that overview a little bit. Because right now, it basically just you click a button and it generates what it thinks it needs, right? So it's over the entirety of the notebook, and this time it generated like 9.5 minutes. I've had ones where it's randomly done like 12 minutes, one where it's done like 6 minutes, but the ability to kind of adjust the length would be really nice. Maybe the tone, and then I would like if I could like generate and put in a prompt. So it's like, hey, I don't need it about the entirety of the notebook. Instead, generate a 10-minute podcast between a male and a female voice with on the topic of, like, if I go back to my home lab, like I've got everything in here. I've got home networking, I've got, you know, storage info, things like that. Maybe I want to create a podcast just about Docker Swarm options, right? And I don't want everything else about like my Mac setup and my Pi-hole DNS setup, but I only want to know about Docker. You know, it'd be good if we could configure that. And we see that David says there's some configuration options coming soon. So we'll keep an eye on the roadmap. If you guys go to it's roadmap.office.com, probably the thing I would look for is either the word notebook or audio overview. If you're especially curious about this option, audio overview, that's where I found that Teams meeting option. So, and in the meeting thing, it says you're going to be able to select the speakers you want, select the tone and the length. So there's some, you know, configuration coming there. I think we're probably going to see that as well. So actually later today, he said they're hoping to have some more items on that audio overview area. So we'll keep you guys up to date, maybe add that to the video description as well.
I
So
will.
have you used Audio Overview yet,
I
Andy?
have. I have. I will give a
Yeah.
public heart out for that one. Thank you. Looking forward to some
Yeah.
more of those features. I love where Notebook's at now. I'm really curious to see where it's going to go. But like some of what you just mentioned, some new options coming, some more on like sharing and references. Oh, that is
Hmm.
awesome news. I'm really excited to hear that.
I am too. One thing that I'm also hoping for is the ability to export or share the audio overview. I'm sure that's probably on the short list. A real world scenario. So I've actually done audio overview in my day job, and the story is we put together a technology interlock that we do between all of our different technologies groups. They come and they talk about what they're going to do over the next fiscal year. It's a way to kind of strategically align. What we did is we used Copilot to take notes, and then I took those notes, I transformed them into SharePoint pages, and I used Copilot to create SharePoint pages. I bundled up the pages, the notes, and the slide deck. It was like 130 slides, put it into a notebook. Then I got an audio overview, and it took the 3 days of meetings and all the notes and everything. It condensed it down to a 15-minute podcast. Then what I did is I shared that podcast around. Right now, if I click on that or I go to play the audio, there's no share option at this time currently. If I pause this, there's no sharing. You can just delete the audio overview. But if you do it in OneDrive, you can actually share. What I did is I opened up Camtasia and I actually recorded my browser audio, and I played through the podcast, and then I was able to save it to Microsoft Stream. That way I ended up sharing the audio overview by basically lifting the audio
Mhm.
out as well. So yeah, that's a good point, David. Is if you guys have feedback on these things, be sure to do like the thumbs up and thumbs down right here. So you're sending feedback directly to the product group as well.
Oh, you're behind the
Um,
quote. Try that
oh
again.
yeah,
Show where the thumbs up is.
right here in the lower corner, there's a thumbs up and thumbs down.
It's
So
right
be
behind
sure
the
to
need
click
help
those.
sign.
Yeah, yeah. So you can click on that and you can tell them what you like about it or what you don't like about it, and send information directly to Microsoft that way. Um, Audio overview, I would say, is one of those. There's a category of new features that's like there's core Copilot functionality, and it's kind of like table stakes, right? Like the having notebooks, having agents, having deep research. These other things like facilitator, and I would add audio overview. These are the things that's like the wow features, They're not like you must have this feature in order to, use the product or not use the product, but they add that like differentiator to it in the market. Facilitator is a success story from my perspective. In Microsoft made something that was really helpful, and they had an idea. They added this. Now you have a facilitator in your meeting, and then they've doubled down on it quickly, right? It used to be it just took notes. Now it takes notes and it adds helpful things in the chat as you go. And then there's more things on the roadmap for facilitator, and they're iterating quickly on it. Audio overview, I think it's another one of those features where it's really prime for rapid iteration, to be like, okay, we're not just going to catch up to like some of the other things we've seen out there, but like let's leapfrog in some creative ways, like publishing it to a SharePoint site or leveraging some of the different Microsoft integrations and hooks, so that, you can like use that audio overview and kind of tune it, things like that. I'm hoping to see really fast iteration, because it's one of those like, it's like the cherry on top type of a feature where it's like, oh my gosh, this just like adds that much more cool factor to a really functional feature overall, which is the notebook. You add the audio overview onto it, and it's like, okay, now this is like really, really cool, because it's kind of meshing what I love about a few other products together into something that also is aware of my meetings and my other stuff in 365. So
I'm a big fan of the Reader app, and my favorite feature in the
mhm.
Reader app is not that it consolidates all of my sources of content that I'm interested in, but it's that it gives me the ability to have an audio replay of that content, so I can do things like drive and listen to, one of the blog posts that I captured. Well, this
Mhm.
is starting to do the same thing for my work content. So I'm able to take that work thing and I can listen to it in a as I'm on the go, as I'm out and about, as I'm interacting or working on like other content. I can have that kind of like playing in the background. And so I really love that we're seeing not only the audio overview here, but I know we had
Mhm.
this as one of the things in our notes. You've got the OneDrive audio overview, and I think it's important that we show that feature
Yeah.
as well while we're here. This
Yeah.
is generally available. I've seen it in all of my tenants. But as John's pulling this up on the screen, we're actually able to
Yeah.
go into your files inside of OneDrive. We'll be able to browse to a file like a Word document, and you'll be able to hover over, find the Copilot option, and then go to a Word document.
Yeah, it's a Word document, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, go to one of those,
So,
and
here we go. A thing about wind farms, like a totally fake Word document,
yeah,
but there's
and
the
create
audio
an audio
overview.
overview.
And this one, it's got that little bit extra on it where, like, from here, I think you're able to share the audio overview, aren't you? After it generates it. Oh, you can switch to a podcast style. You can get the transcript of the overview. See how, like, we're kind of seeing some things come
Yeah.
out, in these other spaces, and hopefully we're going to see them all unify.
And I've long worked with Azure Cognitive Services. I've done a
Hmm.
number of like demos using cognitive services, things like sentiment analysis. I've used the voice generator tools to create some like fake conversations to use as like uh,
Hmm.
advertised conferences and things like that. They're bringing a lot of that research and that into the Microsoft 365 suite and Copilot, which is awesome. I really like
Hmm.
seeing some of that stuff. That's where like their image generator, image recognizer tools came from. A lot of that was Azure Cognitive Services. So we're seeing that over here. There's one more thing on this audio overview though that's pretty cool. We're
Hmm.
seeing this like in OneDrive, so we click on My Files and we can see it there. But can you actually open the
Yeah.
Word document in your web browser?
Yeah, sure. I did want to point out real quick. Check this out. Uh, I clicked and moved it, and it undocked the player,
Yeah.
so I can actually move it around. I didn't know you could do that. Okay, so let's open up the Word document.
Yep.
So it's in the web version of Word right now.
Yep. Word on the web, and go to the
Okay.
Copilot sidebar.
Yep.
And then when this opens, one of the options you're going to see is generate an audio overview from this document. It's the
Yep. Right there.
bullet
This
point
is the
right there.
second one.
Yep.
Yep.
So you can even do this in Office for the web with the
Hmm.
document being open. Now, I haven't checked to see if I can do this in the Office desktop app yet. I actually just discovered this feature this week as I was doing some research on some of the new audio overview features. I mean, this stuff is like recently released, hot off the press. I'm still trying to figure out all the places that it shows up. But yeah, it's showing up here side by side with the actual document.
Yep. Yeah, and there's options were showing up. There was like a save to OneDrive option back over here. I did notice that, like, while it's generating, see, there's not like a stop time. So
Yeah.
I think you got to get to the end of it, and then you'll be able to do that save to OneDrive. That's where it will lift the audio file, and you could save it and share it like any other
Yeah.
file. There it is. So it's 7 minutes long for that audio overview. Now I
Yeah.
could click save to OneDrive, and let's see where it saved it. So it's currently saving a 7-minute audio file, basically, and then open in OneDrive, and let's see where it went. So it went into My Files. It created a new folder called Podcast Downloads, and then it is a MP3 file right there. So from there, I would able to just click share, and I could share it like any other file, or I could move it to like a SharePoint. If you want to click on this and hit move to, you could go basically publish it over to a SharePoint site if you want to make it public
Can
within your
you
organization.
go back to the actual Word document and
Yeah.
just briefly, are you able to play the audio and compare it with the actual document?
Yes. Yeah, let me do that. So I'm going to turn on my browser.
You diving into wind farms, those
Can you hear it?
sweeping installations of
Yeah.
turbines that are becoming a familiar part of landscapes all over the world. Today, we're going to unravel what makes wind farms tick, the pros and cons, and take a closer look at where things might be headed.
Hey there. That's right. Whether you've driven past rows of giant white turbines or noticed them off.
So it did that as 2 different people.
Yeah.
So it did it as a podcast style. When we were back over here and we were generating an audio overview, it was switched to podcast style. So inside of OneDrive, you're able to toggle back and forth. And again, I'm pretty sure that this is just going to take a little bit of time. I'm sure over like a coming months, we're going to see the same buttons across all the interfaces, you know? But that's pretty cool to be able to do it right in there as well. I like the ability to save it to OneDrive. It makes sense that it organizes it over here. Podcast downloads, I'm not quite sure about that name, you know? Maybe it'd be nice if it was like audio overviews or something, but whatever. If I open it up, it probably just opens in a stream player. Yeah, it's just in Microsoft Stream on SharePoint. Yep. Yeah, now called Clipchamp. So you could do that. That also means that you could go through and you could like auto generate chapters too as well. So it can go through. I guess you'd have to like add the transcript first, but you'd be able to like put chapters in your podcast, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Add a thumbnail, right? Because if you're going to publish something, you want to add a thumbnail. I don't know why it's like twitching out on me. But yeah, so that's the audio overview across the notebook, the OneDrive, and the Word document itself in the Word app. It is coming to Microsoft Teams as well, and there will be more information about that, hopefully in the August timeframe. But like I have it in an area, but we're not allowed to show it yet. It's still in NDA tap right now. So, but it's going to be pretty rad. Okay.
So you want to head back to Copilot Notebook in your web browser? Yeah, and let's just bring that up on the screen as we kind of recap and get ready to take this home, because I know you got a hard stop here in just a couple of minutes.
I do, yeah.
This is a long-awaited feature. Now, full discussion public around it is like the notebook name is a little confusing because you create notebooks in OneNote. And then you have Copilot Notebooks, which adds another notebook to the conversation. As Ami said earlier, you do have the ability to bring your like Copilot pages and content into OneNote, so you can still work around that. But this is Copilot Notebooks, and it's the equivalent of projects in ChatGPT. It's the equivalent of projects in Claude or in Google Gemini. And we did step through like a number of the use cases and a number of the capabilities, as well as some of the limitations that you're going to face. As Microsoft likes to say, this is only the beginning, and this is literally only the beginning. We've only had this for a short time, and we have already seen a number of significant use cases for our day-to-day activities. But as David shared, there's a number of new features on the roadmap here coming up very soon that's going to add a lot of additional capabilities, like the researcher agent, some updates to the way that they're doing the audio overviews, expansion on the number of resources that you can add to the notebooks and more. So I'm really excited to see some of those features start to come in. But I know in my organization, some of the pushback that we get is, well, I can do projects in ChatGPT. Well, you can do projects in Copilot for Microsoft 365 as well. And you're going to be able here in the future to share like those notebooks with some of your other colleagues and teammates. And so I think what is going to separate this, though, and like maybe just go into the M365 conference workshop. I think what's going to separate Copilot notebooks from some of those competitors is when you go to add a reference and you go to add content, because you are directly connected to the Microsoft 365 cloud. OneDrive, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams. And then in some cases, you might be also connected to Outlook and Exchange and that content. And we've shown parts of the workflow where it's easy to take things from maybe a meeting transcript or output and get that into here. You can leverage Copilot Pages and you can bring those in. And what I love about that is that the Copilot Pages are not exclusive to this notebook. They're reusable, so they can exist in many different notebooks, many different workspaces, many different places at the same time. But the built-in connections to the Microsoft 365 apps and services is what I think separates this from some of the competitors out there. Now, you can say what you want about the ability to prompt and the memory context that some of the other applications have, some of the guardrails that might exist inside of the Microsoft ecosystem. But the fact that I'm able to get to all of my work content here inside of like my notebook, and I can do that with enterprise data privacy and security, and I can do that with minimal effort and no plugins or like desktop apps running. I think that right there is huge, and I really think that people don't see that, or that factors into the conversation. So I'm glad we were able to show a lot of those features as we were walking through this overview today. I know I got a ton of ideas based off of what we've demoed here and some of the questions. I got a few things I want to make sure that I jot down as we're wrapping this up. I have to wait for the transcript to finish on YouTube so that I can get to through that and then run that through Copilot. But I got a number of ideas for some demos and possibly some workshops coming up. So I'm looking forward to being able to drill down into many of those and explore the capabilities and what we can create with it. So this one was a lot of fun, I know, to put together. Anything else we want to add?
No, I think there was one really good comment in here about deleting notebooks, like what happens when you delete the notebook. So I do want to call that out. There is a delete button if I blow away one of these, like the family meal planning. If I delete this, okay, yes, delete it, and it like goes away. There's no recycle bin. So I have not found where you could go recover that deleted notebook. So that's something to be aware of. That's also, well, that's as we evaluate this in my day job, we haven't rolled out notebooks yet because of some of those things like lifecycle management. What happens if somebody leaves the company? What happens to their notebooks? Is it stored? It's just a SharePoint embedded container. So it's a lot like their personal workspace in the Loop construct. But some of those support things, as you're like, if you're an admin, start thinking about like, oh, what if somebody deletes it, needs to undelete it? Where's it at? It might not be ready for prime time for those reasons, but maybe we'll get more answers as we go and we'll share those along. I think the next thing for me as we round out is I'm going to go create that home notebook, like I talked about, with all the paint colors in my house and all the owner's manuals and stuff like that. I'm going to try to build that concept out and maybe make a video about, how to kind of create a home cheat sheet notebook, right? So that if something breaks in your house, you don't have to go hunt down a bunch of information. You can just ask Copilot, like, hey, I've got an error code on my microwave. What does it mean? And it just pulls from that specific manual. I think that's a pretty interesting idea.
I've been building that through Apple Notes and a shared photo album. But yeah,
I've seen people do that with like Obsidian and stuff too. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a fun concept. It's a cool topic because I think it's really interesting. I mean, me and Andy, we geek out all the time about second brain, for lack of a better word, of like just collecting everything together and trying to make it useful. This fits perfectly in that sweet spot of like, yeah, I'm all about like collecting stuff together and trying to make it do something for me. I'm pretty hopeful about the future for this product, so it's gonna be cool. Okay, with that, I think that pretty much covers it. We covered a lot of ground on this one.
Yeah.
But anything coming up that you wanted to highlight? I don't know if you're doing any speaking soon.
Yes. August 11th, TechCon 365, Atlanta, Georgia. Tickets are still available. There's a couple of days of workshops, 3 days of breakout sessions. It's going to be a really fun time down in hot Atlanta during the hot August month. But that one will be near Centennial Park, I think we're near the Omni. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that conference. Again, TechCon 365 Atlanta coming up second week of August. I'll be there. A lot of other Microsoft teammates and MVPs and community contributors. It's a really fun conference there. And then coming up in November, TechCon 365 in Dallas.
Nice.
Again, 2 days of workshops, 3 days of breakout sessions. It's going to be an awesome event. I'll be there for that one as well. So hopefully I will see you all there.
Cool, man. Awesome. I don't have anything coming up right now, so but I'll let you guys know when I get something. So, but this was great. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for the past 2 hours, and let us know how you're using notebooks. Give us some ideas because I think this is gonna be really fun to play with. But all right, I got to hop to
Yeah.
a meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See you in the next
All right,
one.
have a good weekend. Bye.